Most people think that the hardest part of growing a business is getting clients. It's not. It's what happens after you start getting them. When you realize that your business can't just run on sticky notes, 12-hour days, and those last-minute Slack messages. At some point, you stop being a freelancer and you have to start becoming a real company. And that is where everything changes. Welcome to Rocky Mountain Marketing. I'm your host, Katie Brinkley. Join us as we dive deep with the world's leading digital marketing experts every single Tuesday. It's all about giving you the strategies that are working right now, directly from those who are making an impact. With my 20 years of experience, I'm here to help you navigate the world of digital marketing. Whether you're looking to sharpen your skills or transform your business, you're in the right place. Let's get started on today's journey to success. Welcome back to this week's episode of Rocky Mountain Marketing. Today, we are pulling back the curtain again, but this time we're going to talk about what it really looks like to run a business at scale. Not the highlight reel, not the we just work so well together version, the actual systems, the decision-making, and the daily rhythms that keep Next Step Social running like a business. Not a collection of freelancers and contractors, not a guessing game. And joining me, as always, is COO and co-owner of Next Step Social, my operational other half, Shawn Quintero. Shawn, thanks for joining me again on Rocky Mountain Marketing.
Hey, Katie, thanks for having me.
Last time you came on the show, we talked about how you were stepping in, some of the strategies that we're doing for our clients with the VIP days. Folks, if you have not listened to that episode and you're not familiar with who Shawn is, go check it out after you're done with this episode. But Shawn, I'm so glad that you joined me once again, because we're going to talk a little bit about scaling a company. And maybe that's on somebody's bucket list for 2026 of going from solopreneur into the entrepreneur with a team. So you helped me tremendously with this because I was stuck in a lot of the hiring different contractors, freelancers, and really I was still a solopreneur working as a company. And I want to talk about the partnership that we have, because since you came on to Next Step Social, the business has 100% changed. We've scaled. We've restructured, and honestly, we run it like a completely different company. So from your perspective, what's changed the most about how Next Step Social operates in the day-to-day?
Yeah, so I think one of the big keys that you just said is you had a team, but you're really functioning as a solopreneur. And I think there's a real group of people listening to this that could be in the very same situation where they're solopreneurs with a team. It's almost as if they feel so alone, even though they have a couple contractors maybe working with them, a couple of staff members working with them, but they're the ones primarily making all of the strategic decisions. They're responsible for strategic direction. They're responsible for the vision. They're responsible for lead generation. The business is built off of their personal brand, their personal network. And so they are the business and the business is them. Even though they have a team, they're really acting still as that solopreneur. And so one of the things that I think we've worked on really aggressively and intentionally is helping you position yourself as a true CEO, a true visionary of the company, getting you out of the weeds. I can't tell you how many times I've told Katie, okay, that's a weed. Don't pull that weed. That's my job, or that's somebody else's job. Like, let's get that weed into somebody else's hand. And really being very intentional about, Katie, where is your genius zone? How can you be the best brand ambassador for the company so that you can fully be, all the things that only you can be as CEO? And let's remove everything else. And so that's what we've been very intentional about doing. And one of the things I would encourage people to do is when you're making a big hire, oftentimes people hire for relief. And what that looks like is, I don't like doing this, so I'm going to hire someone to do that. And then you go on and move to the next thing. I don't like doing this, so I'm going to hire someone to do that. And sometimes that's a good thing, right? You need to hire for relief at times. Like, I don't want to do that. That's draining my energy. Let me go hire. But that's not a scalable hire. Instead of hiring just for relief, what you want to do is you want to hire for growth. And oftentimes that looks like a strategic partner or a leadership kind of position where it's, hey, I'm hiring you not just to do a task or do a job, but I'm hiring you for the way you think. I'm hiring for
Right.
the decisions you can take off my plate, not just the tasks you can take off my plate. And that's really what we've set up with Next Step Social is how can we really eliminate the need for you to make every single decision and only bring the decisions to you that you need to make. And then how do we delegate to the team and create a team of decision makers, not just a team of task doers? So that's really kind of what we've played with this year. And that's really helped kind of build a foundation of our ability to generate more leads, convert those leads, and then be able to do the work of those leads without you having to step in every single time. And actually, just recently, it's been interesting to see we're fulfilling with clients and you never interact with those clients. You're busy speaking on stages. You're busy, writing your next book. You're busy doing everything else. And so that's when we know it's a success. When the executive leadership isn't even involved in the day to day, they're unaware of what's happening on the day to day. They know the metrics, they know the satisfaction of the clients, they know whether or not we're performing at peak levels, but they don't need to know like the individual, day to day issues. Otherwise, that's going to bog them down. It's going to create decision fatigue, it's going to create burnout, and you'll never get out of that solopreneur kind of position.
I love that you brought up there's clients where I I'm not involved in the day-to-day anymore, and that was really honestly something that was hard for me to let go of because I'd been so involved in the client success and the day-to-day, for the past, almost decade. And for example, just let's just give the listeners an example of, when I am out speaking or selling, what's happening on your end here at Next Step to keep things moving?
Yeah, we have a system that we use that allows us to interact with our clients on a weekly basis, sometimes a daily basis, sometimes monthly basis, depending on the cadence that they prefer. But we have that process set up so that we are able to interact with the clients. The client's able to give us feedback on what they're seeing within their industry. We're able to really utilize and activate our team to create content, write copy, create images, create video reels, produce podcasts. You know, our team is working behind the scenes. We have director of operations that's making sure things are happening, who functions as a project manager as well as many other things, kind of a system builder. And what we've really begun to do is make the transition from being founder dependent to framework dependent. And I think this is really key. It's when you have a founder dependent business, the founder is the bottleneck, everything falls on the founder. When you have a framework dependent business, everything's dependent on a system or a process or a framework that allows you to just follow the framework. You don't have to go to the founder because there's a decision making framework. So which frees up, creates a lot of freedom for the founder to go do all the other things like speaking, etc. So I'll give you a couple of like real life examples. We've landed clients where you come back from, a 3-day trip and you're like, oh, we landed a new client. We've retained clients and renewed contracts while you're on stage speaking, not even aware that this is happening. We've had conversations with clients where we're working through strategy and you're not having to be in those meetings because we've set up a team of strategists to be in those meetings in replace of you. And I think that's what's really key. Oftentimes with businesses that are professional services, you think that you're the person bringing the skill set, right? You're the person who went to college, you're the person who got the degree, you got the certification, you spent the years and years and years refining your craft. And so you bring the skill set. But one of the biggest kind of trickiest transitions is how do you remove yourself from that fulfillment position as much as possible? And the way you do that is turning your brilliance into a repeatable framework. So that's kind of the transition we've made is how do we become less and less founder dependent? And to be very frank, we're in the middle of this transition, right? We've made a lot of progress and every day we're still like, oh, this is a part that we need to systematize or this is a part that we need to create a new process or this process we built a year ago no longer applies. We've scaled beyond it. So now let's build a different or let's adjust it. So it's an ongoing process. But what happens is if it's founder dependent, you never get past fulfillment into framework building. And so being able to like get someone on board, I think this is the beauty of our relationship where I can do all that thinking for you. I can make those decisions for our company. You're able to spend your time doing the things that actually generate leads, get sales, do the things.
What do you wish that more founders understood about the operational side of business growth?
Yeah, I may have said this in the previous podcast episode. If you haven't listened to it, go listen to it. Um, One of the biggest things that I think, like, the kind of questions and problems that I solve on the operational level is not solving an issue. Like, I genuinely don't care about a mistake making happening or, something going wrong on the day-to-day basis. What I care about is the system that allowed that thing to go wrong. For example, let's say we have a podcast that gets published that doesn't have, the right intro. I'm not concerned necessarily with fixing that podcast. The tactician, right, our podcast editor is going to do that. I'm focused on, okay, where in our SOP did we go wrong that allowed that intro to go wrong? Maybe we need a checklist. Maybe we need an automated process that, ensures, we get everything in. Maybe we need better training for the podcast editor. I'm thinking at a higher level of how to fix that, not just this one time, but on a consistent basis so it doesn't happen again. So with
Yeah.
operations, you're not just trying to fix problems, you're trying to create systems you can rely on that prevent those problems in the first place.
And, with being me as the CEO, the quote unquote, the visionary, and you're the integrator, that's the COO, how do you decide when to tell me no?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Some of the things that we really follow is a book called Traction and a companion piece to the book Traction. If you've never heard of the book Traction, it's from a company called EOS, which is the Entrepreneurial Operating System. We pull things from it. We don't follow it like to the T, but we
Right
pull
away.
what works for us. And the companion book, Rocket Fuel, is all about the relationship between the CEO and COO. And part of our ability to kind of make decisions, for you to tell me something, for me to tell you something, is deciding beforehand how we're going to have those conversations. For example, we've delegated which decisions do you make, which decisions do I make. For example, you make decisions when it comes to the vision of the company. You make decisions when it comes to, the kind of branding, the messaging, the culture of the company, how you really want the company to kind of succeed. I'm making decisions when it comes to systems operations, software, technology, how we deliver. Like, that's a decision I'm making. I don't need to come to you for that decision. When it comes to messaging, brand, etc., that's a decision you're making. You don't have to come to me. Now, we have a very collaborative relationship. So we're both in conversation literally every single day and bouncing ideas off of each other. But the final decision when it comes to those things, we've delegated. With strategic growth, partnerships, sales, some things around like conversion events, those things we're collaborating on. They're kind of a joint decision making process. With client experience, with service quality, those are decisions I'm making with your consultation, right? So we are delegating the decisions, the types of decisions we're making before we have to make those decisions. Now,
Yeah.
sometimes you're the visionary. So what's going to happen is you're going to say, I want to do these 10 things and it's amazing. And okay, great. And you're going to be fired up about it. And then the next day, you're going to have 10 new ideas. Oh my gosh, we should do this thing and this thing. And oh, and then you're going to be at a conference. I heard about this software. We need to incorporate it. And my job is not necessarily to tell you no, but to say we can and. So we can do that. And this is what it's going to look like if we do that with our current capacity. It's going to look like us saying no to these other things. Is that what you want to prioritize? Is that something that you want to do? Because we can always reprioritize things, but recognize by saying yes to this thing, we're saying no to this thing. So
Mhm.
it's always a yes and. Yes, we can do that. And here's how it's going to impact the team. Here's how it's going to impact, our capacity, our timeline to get, our quarterly rocks done, our annual goals. So it's always a yes and. Sometimes I'll say, Katie, no, I think that's a bad idea. Like I'll be completely frank and honest. And I think you need to have that kind of relationship where you can be honest. Like, here's my honest take on that. If you make the ultimate decision, then we're going to go with it. But I think that's a little bit of like the type of relationship you have with your COO or the person that's like your business partner, is like you have to be able to honestly disagree together, you know, come to a decision together. And then in front of the team, you got to be one voice. So even if I disagree with the decision you made, when we're announcing it to the team, I'm 10 out of 10 gung ho about that decision. I'm not going to be like, Katie decided this, and then I guess we're going to have to do it, y'all. No, this is Katie's vision. We're going to go do this, and we're going to figure out how to make it work.
Yeah.
And vice versa. When I make a decision in my decision categories, and you're like, I disagree with it, but this is the decision we're making, we're going with one voice. We're not kind of battling each other within the team. And it's very similar to like parenting, right? I have a 3-year-old little girl. For the first time ever, she came to ask me something. And then she went to my wife and she said, Daddy said no. Can I get this? And it was candy. Can I get chocolate? And I heard her and I said, Nyla, I said no. And then she went to my wife again.
Yeah, I was going to say, the fact that she even started it with Daddy said no, that'll change. That'll go away. And soon it'll just be going to Addie and saying like, hey.
She'll get smart, 100%. So like she's starting to develop that. Guess what? Your employees, your contractors have the same approach. If they don't like a decision I make, they're going to go to Katie and say, Katie, I think this. What do you think? And that you have to be sure you're on the same page. You have to understand. You have to be in constant communication with each other so that you can take the business forward. There can't be like, we have a no surprise policy. I can't be surprised by a decision Katie made. Katie can't be surprised by a decision I made. We have to know that we're in this together. We're locked arms. We have the same vision. How we get there might look different, but we're going to move forward.
Yeah. Well, and you kind of, you talked about rocket fuel. We'll link that in the show notes. The book Traction, which for those of you that are watching on YouTube, it's just over my shoulder. I've read it twice. That was one thing that I read about 2 years ago. And it really allowed me to change my thinking from being a business owner running a team of contractors into, a better phrase would be a solopreneur running a team of contractors into a business owner running a team of employees. And I want to talk a little bit about the EOS system and Traction because that book made such a big difference in my life. If you haven't read it yet, I strongly recommend it. We'll include a link in the show notes here as well. But let's talk exactly how we run the EOS day to day.
So EOS is a practical framework that has been designed and utilized by literally now thousands, if not tens of thousands of business owners. And it's how you run the business. It's the how. It's not a software. It's a set of tools and practical disciplines and habits that you encompass within your company in order to have clarity, control, and to get traction, to build momentum. It's very easy to be very busy. It's very easy to have a lot of contractors that are very busy doing a lot of work. But you're not actually moving forward or growing the company. So how do you get to a point where you're building that traction towards your ultimate goal? So it helps to get everybody on the same page with a clear vision, execute that vision with discipline and accountability, and build a healthy, cohesive leadership team that trusts and communicates effectively. It's based off of 6 key components. Essentially, you get these 6 things in order in your business, then you are going to start building traction. The first is vision. This is making sure everyone's aligned around a single direction. Katie and I, as co-owners of Next Step Social, could have very different visions of where we want to go, which is going to create a lot of tension, a lot of chaos. And I've seen business partners break down, the relationship kind of create a breakdown in the relationship because both partners see very different visions. So this helps get everybody on the same page around a single direction, and you essentially answer questions that get you on that same page. For example, what are our core values? What is our core focus? Why do we actually exist as a company? What is our 10-year goal? What is our 3-year picture? What is our 1-year plan? What is our clear marketing strategy? What are we doing every quarter, right? We do quarterly sprints. So what are we sprinting towards this quarter to get closer to our 1-year plan, 3-year picture, 10-year goal? And then what are our main issues? What are the problems, the tensions, the challenges that we're going to focus on solving over this quarter, year, 3 years, etc.? You have all of that really clearly laid out, then all of us can get behind that. So number 1 is vision. And what we do is we actually have an annual planning session coming up in about a month from this day of recording, where we're going to review that. We're going to look at, okay, How did we do this year? Is it still clear? Has it shifted? Has it changed? So that's kind of, you have a year annual refresher. The second section is people. So this is making sure that you have the right people to get to the vision.
Mhm.
There are two kind of core tools here to build like a great team of A players and B players and C players. Because here's the truth. Some people are going to be A players, some people are going to be B, some people are going to be C, and you need all of them. And so how do you create a core team of people, no matter what level of skill they bring to the table, that's on your team, to be moving in the right direction? The two tools there are like the people analyzer. So it evaluates if team members share the company core values. If there's somebody who has the skill set, but they don't have the values we have, it's going to be a lot of relational tension. I know I used to work in corporate America, and I can tell you how many people I was like, oh, that's the grumpy dude that you don't talk to or you don't ask for anything. You go around him. They have him in that position because he has the skill set, but nobody actually likes working with that person. You never want that, especially in a startup, because, it's going to spoil everyone. And then you have the GWC test in this section. And what that is you want to make sure the person, let's say you have the right person. How do you know if it's the right person? Well, you know if it's the right person if they get it. They understand what the job is. They want it. They want to do the work, and they have the capacity, the capacity to do it. They have the skill set that can get the job done. So analyze every single person on your team and ask, do they get what the job actually is? Do they know what it looks like to win in this job and what the win for the company is with them in this position? Do they want it, and do they have the capacity for it? So that's people. The third kind of key component in EOS of the 6 is data. This is kind of data over drama. We have that principle within our company of we want to make sure we have as many objective numbers as possible. We want to know how many leads did we generate? How many of those turned into a booked call? How many of those turned into a yes? How many of those turned into a no? How many of those are still in a follow-up phase? How much engagement did we get on social? Within our team, we have a specific productivity goal. So if it takes X amount of hours to produce a podcast, can we shave that off by an hour or by 30 minutes? We want to have data, clear data collected, and that way we can make better kind of decisions that aren't based off of emotion or gut feelings, but these are what the numbers are. So that's going to allow us to make better decisions. The
Yeah.
fourth core kind of key component is issues. And so this is, what are the problems? What are the challenges you're facing on a day-to-day basis? How fast can we identify it? And how fast can we find the right solution for it? The fifth is process. So this is where all your SOPs come into play. This is where your systems come into play. This is where you really build those checklists, or those workflows. So is our process laid out clearly and visibly so people can see it? And the last is traction. And this is, how do you actually know you're making improvement? Well, this is where discipline meets accountability. And this is where we're keeping everybody and saying, hey, this is what you need to be doing, over the next 90 days to make sure you're on track. And so you combine all 6 of these: vision, people, data, issues, process, and traction. And essentially you're going to build a lot of momentum in your business.
It was such a game changer for me to start looking at next step through this lens. It really was. And every time I say the word game changer now, I'm always like, no, AI did not write that sentence. It was me. I didn't say delve, but game changer has been ruined for me. But I digress. I think that once you read this book, you're going to realize how certain people, like for me, it was the people chapter, like number 2 that you talked about, that really opened my eyes up into this is the right person, the wrong seat, the right person, whatever. And it made such a difference with how I looked at building the team prior to you and I teaming up and joining forces. And I think that for founders who don't have a COO yet, what is the one thing that they can borrow from our structure for their business?
Yeah, some of the quick things that you can start to implement, if let's say you have a team, daily huddles are really key. So daily huddles are where you answer 3 core questions. It's 5 minutes max. If it's longer than 5 minutes, you're not in a huddle, you're in an actual meeting. We don't meet, we huddle. So what do you talk about in these 3 things? The first is, what'd you accomplish yesterday? Everyone lists it out. No discussion around it. Just, what did you get done yesterday? If it's a Monday, what'd you get done last week? What is your focus on today? So what do you want to get done today? What progress you want to make today? Everybody lists it. You don't discuss it. And then who do you need to connect with after this huddle to cover any challenges or questions? And so this is not a discussion. We're going to have that after the huddle. But oftentimes what'll happen is, oh, Wave will say, I need to talk to Shawn, because I have this specific question. Great. Let's talk after the huddle. So those three things are really key. When you cover those three questions, it just allows you to build a lot of that momentum. So that would be my recommendation. You don't have to be the one running it, right? The CEO or the main person doesn't have to run it. Choose someone on your team to decide, and it doesn't have to be like a person in leadership. Just say, hey, you're going to run this. Here's how I want you to run it. And then I want you to send me an email summary every single day of what the daily huddle was, or send me the recording. It's a 5-minute meeting, right? 5-minute huddle. So that's something you can easily do. The other thing that I would recommend doing is doing that GWC test. Take a look at it. Write the names of every person who's on your team right now. Every single person, from the intern that just started to the person who's been with you for the last 7 years. And ask yourself, do they get it? Do they truly understand what the job is? If not, there's a great opportunity to reinforce what that job position is, what the wins are, how they can win, what the win to the company is by hiring them, etc. Do they want it? All right. Do they have a desire to show up and do a good job in this position? Or is this just a stepping stone to something else? And just because it's a stepping stone doesn't make it a bad thing, but understanding that allows you to say, okay, is it a stepping stone within our company? So as we grow, they want to grow with the company, or are they not really in it to win it here? Are they just using this to build a resume? And then the final thing is, do they have the capacity for it? I talked about A, B, and C players. An A player has all three. They get it, they want it, they have the capacity for it. A B player is missing typically one of those things. So maybe they really want it and they have the skill set, but they're just confused on how to win in the position. That's just a clarity issue. A C player is typically somebody who is missing two of those. So maybe they don't get it and they don't have the skill set, but they really want to win. And typically we see this with a lot of younger folks is they have a lot of positive energy. They're like, yes, I want to do a good job. They just don't know what the job is, but they're coming with the enthusiasm. And they don't really have the skill set yet. They just don't have the life experience. So then, okay, that's a C player. That my job is to help focus them, over if they're a C player, how do we get one of those clear? How do we get them to be super clear about what the job is and then build the skill set? And do you have the time and the money, frankly, and the capital to invest in that person? And then if they're a B player, how do I make them an A player? And then with the A players, how do I make sure that they're solid and happy and doing a good job and feel incentivized to continue to be an A player? Because an A player can quickly slide into a B player if they're burned out, overwhelmed, undercompensated, etc. So how do we make
Mhm.
sure that the A player continues to be an A player? That's something you can do as well.
We have talked about so much from the EOS, like what COOs do, what CEOs do. I do want to talk about something that I think that not, as we wrap up the episode, that not you and I both come from different businesses, different backgrounds. We've known each other for years. Again, if you didn't listen to the previous episode with Shawn, go listen to it after this. But I want to talk about what makes our partnership work when a lot of CEO, COO roles fall apart. What do you think it is that makes our partnership work well?
I think, let's take a look at any marriage. Why does a marriage work really well? And my wife is a marriage and family therapist. So I'm going to speak from the psychological perspective in kind of psychotherapy. It works really well because you're friends first. You just like hanging out with each other. I think we can joke around, we can have fun. We like hanging out with each other. So, you're friends first. And I think that's what's really helped is we laid a really solid foundation of friendship. That I know when you bring an issue up and when I bring an issue up, we're bringing it up because we care about the business, not because we don't like each other or because we don't see that each other has the best interest in the company. It's coming from that friendship perspective. So, number one, we have a really strong friendship. Number two, we have different skill sets that complement each other and work really well. For example, with me and my wife, as an example, I sometimes blurt things and I don't realize like, oh, like that was dumb to say. And so she'll say, like, Shawn, don't say that. Like, this is how you want to say that. It's going to land much better. She's a much better communicator than I am. And so we support each other in the ways that we are weak, right? We kind of help and complement each other. And I think with our business partnership, we see the same thing. There are things you're really good at that I am just not good at, that I admire. There are things I'm really good at that you're just not good at and that you admire. Or there are things that we're both good at, but you're like a genius at. And so I could do it, but I'm not a genius at it. And so having those complementary skill sets work really well. And then being on the same page about what growth looks like what is that vision? Because if I have ulterior motives, you have ulterior motives, you have different visions, we're going to be going in separate ways. Even if it's like a 1% difference, it's going to eventually grow. And so if you take like two lines, just 1% is going to become a very big deal down the line. And so you want to be as on the same page as possible, get very clear, do check-ins, kind of have an instant connection of like, hey, how does this connect to the vision? Like everything falls back to the vision, not to the person. Because that's what matters is, are we going in the same direction? Then great.
I agree. I agree on all of it. And man, I think you're a great communicator. So I just need to spend some more time with Addie and hear how to be a better one too, as I guess,
I've
because
learned much from her.
well, if you're listening and thinking, I'm not there yet, that's okay. You can start acting like a CEO and COO, even if it's just you right now. I want you to start by asking yourself, what does my business need from me, the visionary, and what does it need from structure? I think that when you start building out one rhythm, one system, or one meeting around that, that is how you can start scaling without losing your sanity. So, if today's episode got you thinking about the difference between running your business and building one that runs with you, that's exactly the kind of structure we help entrepreneurs with here at Next Step Social. Be sure to subscribe to Rocky Mountain Marketing for all episodes. But if you want some more behind the scenes strategy like this, join our Facebook group, Marketing Trends Now. It's on Facebook. Shawn goes live in there every week, brings great conversations to the group. It's a very large group. I'm sure that it will find some great networking opportunities and community in there. But Shawn, I can't thank you enough for joining me on today's episode of Rocky Mountain Marketing.
Thanks for having me, Katie.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of Rocky Mountain Marketing. I hope you're leaving with valuable insights and the inspiration to lead your market. If you've enjoyed our time together and found today's podcast episode useful, I have a small favor to ask of you. Please hit that subscribe button to stay updated with the latest episodes. And if you know someone who could benefit from these episodes, maybe a fellow business leader or an aspiring entrepreneur, go ahead and share this episode with them. Let's spread the knowledge and grow together. Also, I'd love to hear from you and continue the conversation beyond the podcast. Visit me at katiebrinkley.com to connect, to find more resources, or just to share your journey. And be sure to pick up your copy of my new book, The Social Shift, at katiebrinkley.com/book. Thanks again for tuning in. I'm Katie Brinkley, and I can't wait to dive into more strategies and stories with you on the next episode of Rocky Mountain Marketing. Let's keep on taking your marketing to new heights.